Welcome back to the Athletes Podcast. This is episode 81 featuring Joe Delegrave, a 2012 Paralympic Bronze medalist and a human being who I look up to for many different reasons, but someone who was able to just provide some insane insights into what it's like. His college athletic career was cut short due to an injury, an accident more specifically. We dive into it during the episode. I sincerely hope you appreciate and enjoy what Joe has to share. He's an extremely inspiring individual and someone I look up to and I'm excited to chat with moving forward in the future. This is episode 81 of the Athletes Podcast, here to educate and entertain the next generation of athletes. I hope you enjoy. Please give it a like, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Thanks for watching. Here we go. Yes, sir. You all good? Are you putting a headset? I didn't know if you were putting a headset on there or not.
I was thinking about it and then I'm like, no, it's I'm at training camp right now, and so my background looks like a prison cell. It's like, so I'm trying to figure out something that looks a little bit more on brand or whatever. But
we're going patriotic now. It's all right. Typically we feature Canadian athletes. Now we got an American on, and he's making sure everyone knows.
I had to stick it to you guys.
Yeah. It's all good. Well, I do want to say thank you very much for coming on. I'm excited to dive in, share a bit about your story, the incredible human being that you are. Let's start with training camp. Where are you at right now? What's going on? What are you doing? What are you up to?
Yeah, man. So we're play wheelchair rugby for the national team, and down in Birmingham, Alabama. There's a training Olympic and Paralympic training center down in Birmingham called Lakeshore Foundation, and so this has been the home of USA Wheelchair Rugby since about 2003-ish. So quite a long time, and I've been coming here since 2008. So it's like a home away from home, if you will. But we're just in the quarantine process with the whole COVID protocols, having to get tested and then quarantine until our test results come back. So yeah.
Gotcha. And so let's dive in. I want to share a bit about your story, you as an athlete, both before and then now currently after your accident. And I want to just have you share from your perspective, you kind of tell the story, because frankly, I do not have the ability, knowledge, or you name it. Frankly, I just am honored to be able to share your story, and I feel very fortunate to be able to share this with the audience, because what you've been able to do and what you've done is pretty incredible. And I'm just grateful that we have the ability to share your story here.
Yeah, man. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. I think it focuses around identity, and then also on this idea that we always have an opportunity to control our choices. A lot of times we get down about controlling our circumstances. If there's obstacles, we want to move them out of the way. We want to get rid of them. And sometimes they're just there. They're reality. We didn't control it. Maybe we made bad decisions and we did, but they're there and they're not going away. And what do we do to pivot? What do we do to pause first and recalibrate that? What do we do? How do we make that choice to choose the successful route compared to, being lazy and taking the easy way out and playing that victim card, playing that blame game? So that's kind of where my story stems. But it started with a love of sports. Started with me growing up playing a lot of sports, basketball, football, baseball, that good stuff. Pond hockey growing up, whatever. I just love being active, love being a part of a team. And was able to get a college scholarship and worked hard to get that, and played some football for a Division II school in Minnesota. And that was kind of the dream and goal, and was living that out.
It's and so you talk about how important it is to, understand that obstacles come in the way. One of the quotes I found, or as I was doing some research, that you talked about was the fact that accountability takes vulnerability. And that just resonated so much with me. I mean, your story in general is very familiar. This just all around athlete, willing to play, pick up whatever sport it was growing up through high school. You're playing football at the university Div 2 level and excelling throughout that. How were you as an athlete, young, going through, and what was your perspective like? And as far as from an athletic specific perspective, were you trying to get to a certain point? Did you have goals in mind that you were trying to achieve? And then, how did you pivot from that?
Yeah. So for me, that was the goal. It was playing at that level. And then from there, it's like, of course, I want to be the starting tight end, and I want to be an All-American or whatever it would be. And that freshman year got to play as a true freshman, so didn't get redshirted and did really well in camp. And so I was really proud of that. And then, and I think as athletes, we're always, a lot of us our love language is affirmation. We seek it out, and in sports, that's kind of it's right there. It's built in. You get the affirmation from a coach or a teammate, whether it's good or bad, whether it's like, hey man, you need to step it up, or great job. It's all built in, which is, it's kind of a drug, man. Like it's something that I loved. And you seek that out. At least any good athlete, competitive athlete, will do that. And for me, I lost some of that identity when I got in my accident. It was in a boating accident when I was 19 years old. So it was in between my freshman and sophomore years of college. So I'm 19, I'm invincible. On July 9th, I'm 6'6", 260 pounds. The next day I get in this accident where my buddy hits the bottom of the river accidentally. I fly backwards, hit my head on the boat, inside the boat, and break my neck at the C6 and 7 level, 6 and 7 vertebrae down from the base of your skull. So a very high level injury. And that identity's gone. I'm no longer 6'6". I'm laying in a hospital bed, completely paralyzed. And there's this wheelchair beside me that they want me to get in. But my athletic identity is just ripped away in a split second. And it's that moment where there's this giant obstacle and circumstance in my life that obviously I didn't plan for or want or desire whatsoever, but it's there. And it's a dark time. I remember, at 19 years old, I remember laying in the bed, there's tubes coming out of my body everywhere, every orifice, crevice, whatever it was. And I'm just begging God to, like, man, we wiggle a toe, move a leg, like give me some sign. Cause what the hell's going on here? I'm angry. There needs to be, like, is there purpose in this whole thing? Like, why did this happen to me? The whole why me thing. And all that's valid. Like, that's a real thing that you're going to go through at that moment. But I'm laying in the bed and just feeling trapped and feeling like, man, and I'm a guy that, that faith's important to me. But I'm just going like, there's no way. Like, I'm mad at God. I'm mad at the whole situation. And my identity's gone. And there's just like, how is there purpose in this? And so before you pivot, there's got to be a pause. There's got to be a moment where you're going to be real with yourself and going, this is my circumstance that I have. This is the obstacle that I'm facing. A lot of, in 2020, the word pivot got thrown around. Pivot. Well, you can pivot and go do something else, but you're just an unguided missile at that point, because you never paused and reflected and really recalibrated what that passion and purpose is in your life if something bad happened throughout COVID. And a lot of people want to pivot without pausing, and you have to pause. You have to understand who you are, that identity piece. I'm going like, who am I? I got the questions swirling around in my head at 19 going like, am I going to find a job? Am I going to be able to find a girl that's going to want to be with me, and kids, and that whole deal that you're thinking about as life completely erupts into something that you have no idea what's going to happen the next day or the next day. And I think that was something for me that I had to really get over with to be able to kind of move on.
I cannot even imagine going through something like that, especially at the age of 19, when you're at your peak, right? You're ready to go, you're flying, you're loving life. I do want to say thank you for being so open with your story. I mean, I'm, a couple weeks after meeting you on Clubhouse, fortunate enough to be able to chat with you. But I think what's so important, what I'm really sticking with, is the fact that you are so open with your story and sharing the insights that go along with it. And, not just the sunshine and rainbows about the positive aspects afterwards. There are some negative points I'm sure that you went through in difficult situations that I can't even imagine. What were some of the strategies that you used to get through that? I mean, I know you talked about the reflection, and I think that, were there specific strategies that you used to get maybe out of that funk or reframe your perspective and really understand and grasp where you were at?
Yeah, it took a while. It wasn't a switch that just flipped and we're moving on. It took a while. But the first step is to just it's just a step. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you got to take a leap of faith to go into what you want to do. You got to go for it. You got to jump over it. You got to whatever it is. And it's like, no, man, it's just a step. Like it's just one little step. Like for me, it wasn't going to go from laying in a hospital bed to being a Paralympian. Like that's not this, you know what I mean? And it's the same way with my attitude. I had a pretty decent positive attitude, but at the same time, like struggling through a lot of those emotions. That's a roller coaster. And starting with tiny, tiny goals. A lot of people want to shoot for those outcomes, and the outcome ends up being their goal. Like if my goal is a gold medal, it's not a goal, it's an outcome. There's a lot of things that go into it that I can't control as a team sport athlete, but
Right.
I can set up like I want to get in better shape, and this is how I'm going to do it. I want to be at a certain weight, and this is why I want to be at a certain weight. I want to be able to push X minute mile or push an X minute court sprint, and setting up really objective goals that are realistic and obtainable, and being able to do that in a way that gains momentum. Like a lot of people have really lofty goals, and that's great. But if you don't have like 10 steps to get there, you're going to get to like step 5. You don't even know you're at step 5. You're halfway through it, and you're like, this is way too hard. I'm done. And so many people do that because number one, they don't set up small goals. So they're like automatically like there's a chemical rush when that happens. You cross something. That's why people do lists a lot. You cross something off your list, you start feeling good about yourself. Feel like it could be taking the trash out, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, baby, cross that off. I'm the champ. You know what I'm saying? Like, but
100%.
when you do that, there's momentum that happens. The other thing that you need to do is to have perspective during your journey. For me, about a year after my accident, I was still not very independent at all. But I looked back and I'm like, I can dress myself now. I can push around the block now. That perspective, that pause to look back and go, okay, this is where I came from. Wow, that's a lot. All right, let's keep going. It gives you a little extra jolt, little energy, a little espresso action to start moving forward some more. So it helps with that momentum. It gives you a boost. So setting up those smaller goals and then perspective as well is really important. And I think along those lines, and I talked about this recently in a video I did, is impact. Like your impact meter doesn't always have to be the indicator of if you're doing a good job or not, or if you should continue. A lot of times we like, oh man, I don't know. Maybe with this podcast, you're like, I want X amount of viewers, and I'm not there yet. But then, and that impact meter is going, oh, you're not impacting enough. But then someone might reach out to you and go, you know what, you really spoke into me by doing this athlete podcast, and it was amazing. Like that significance is way more than any numbers game that you play in your head. And so like, don't let the impact meter set you off course to what you're being faithful to or where your discipline is. I think that's something that's really, really important.
I could not agree more with any of the 3 things you just listed off there. I mean, for me personally and the athletes podcast team here, I mean, you're right. Like it doesn't matter the views, the likes, the shares on it. And for me personally, for us, like if you were able to impact one person every time, learn a little bit of information from you as a Paralympian, all the incredible work that you do outside of the sport of wheelchair rugby. Like and I said it before on another podcast and Jordan reminded me of it, but every conversation that you have with someone, every interaction that you have, you can gain value because they bring value and provide something unique to them. And I feel grateful to be able to have conversations like this with you. So to shine a bit more of the positive energy on this, let's talk about 2012, you winning bronze in the Paralympics. You're 8-time captain in wheelchair rugby representing the United States. You didn't make 2016 Rio. I'd love to dive into that a little bit later, but talk about your experience playing the sport of wheelchair rugby. It's very unique. You guys have a different shaped ball than traditional rugby. Obviously, you are not in a traditional format on a field. So dive in, maybe give a bit of background on what the sport is, what it looks like for people who maybe aren't familiar with it.
Yeah. So 2012 was my first Paralympics. It was, a dream come true, a culmination of a lot of hard work and sacrifice from me and then my wife as well. We ended up moving across country from Minneapolis to Phoenix to be able to train with other Paralympians and taking that, continue to take those steps to be successful. And so it was an amazing deal. But wheelchair rugby is played 4-on-4 in a basketball court. It's like rugby in its full contact, and we don't wear helmets or anything like that. Obviously, our chairs are taking the brunt of it. But it's a weird sport. So you play with what looks like a volleyball. You're on a basketball court, and without any hoops. There's key areas that are 3 by 8 meters, or no, 1.5 by 8 meters, as a rectangle on each end of the court, and that's your try zone. When you cross the ball over the line, it's 1 point per one try. And so it's a fast-paced game. We play up into the 50s or 60s each game. So it's a high-speed offensive game. And when you turn the ball over, it's a big deal. On the international side, there's only probably 6 or 7 turnovers a game. Teams are just so good at offense. So it's a very like high stakes game. Each turnover matters, and clock management matters. And so within the elements that you have these people in wheelchairs smashing into each other, there's a lot of strategy that goes on in the game, because it's 4-on-4. And then we play with classifications, which are 0.5 to 3.5. 3.5 is the highest functioning player that can play. 0.5 is the lowest functioning player. And on the court, you can only have 8 points of classification. So within those 4 guys, you can't have 4 3.5s that are the highest function. Yeah, they have to equal 8 points. And so for me, I'm a 2.0, so you could have 4 of me on the court. So it just has to equal 8 points or less. And so there's a lot of strategy within that as well. That's really unique. So it's a really brilliant sport takes elements of rugby and hockey and soccer and basketball and kind of blends them together into this full speed, high speed chess type of thing that happens. So it's pretty neat.
It's pretty incredible. We were watching some highlights before we started recording, and it's crazy the amount of force that you guys are able to generate on that court, banging into one each other. Incredible that that you're able to withstand that, get up back afterwards. Is wildly impressive, to say the least. I was at can't believe whether it was 2017 or 2019, the wheelchair basketball championships for under 21 were in Toronto, and I was there working as a doping control chaperone. And they had similar rules about the classifications, the point scale, 1 to 0.5 to 3.5, and that is such a unique way of classifying and being able to control the variables, because you could have one team that is super able, I believe, if that would be the correct terminology.
High functioning, able-bodied.
High functioning, thank you. But so it's a super unique way of controlling that. It very unique to Paralympic sports. How do they? What's the correct way to ask this? Are teams chosen based on that? Is that brought into consideration? Does that make it a more subjective selection process?
So like you could be one of the best players in the country or in the world and left off the team just based on the numbers game.
Yeah.
Like if we need a 0.5 or we need a 2 or we need a 1, like whatever it would be. And then it's like, oh, you're the 4th best one, but we only need 2 of them. Sorry, dude. So it's an interesting deal there, and it's kind of neat because it brings equality into the mix where there's a lot of different, like this lower functioning player, he could be like the catalyst for you winning a gold medal, but he could be the slowest person on your team, but we need him and he's really smart or whatever it would be. And then it's neat as well because we're technically a co-ed sport. So like on our training squad, we have one chick on our team, and so they get a 0.5 reduction if they play. So she's a 0.5, but so with the rule, she's a 0, so we can put 8.5 points in the court.
Crazy.
So like she's like almost the opposite of this high functioning deal, where those high functioning players really help, but so do these really low functioning players because it ends up putting more points in the court technically. So it's a pretty wild deal, 100%. And really neat. Yeah.
And I bet having just a female on the court or on your team provides another unique perspective as well, and a little bit of maybe camaraderie. I don't know what else she would bring to the table. There's probably a lot of positives.
It's great, man. She's fantastic. If you looked at her, you go, and she knows this. You go like, there's no way she plays rugby. She's very skinny, a girly looking thing, but she's fierce. She's awesome. She also drinks beer and whiskey, so she doesn't mess around. But it's neat to see her do this. We've had two women. Carrie Morgan back in 2009 was on the national team, and then Liz Dunn this year. And so it hasn't happened that much,
Mm.
but I think it's great because it's such a melting pot on our team already.
Mm-hmm.
But building a culture out of love and listening to understand different walks of life is so important and needed for this world right now. And I just think it's really neat what she's doing, and being able to be a voice for disabled women, not only in our country but in the world. So it's pretty neat to see her have that success.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can reduce the amount of testosterone in the room, I feel like sometimes it'll help out.
Probably a good thing. Yeah, yeah.
um, so I'm curious as to why you chose wheelchair rugby as your sport, because I'm sure you were presented with a
Yeah.
couple different options. You probably considered a bunch of different. Was there a specific reason you went with rugby?
It was just meant to be. So we about a year and a half into my accident, like that whole first year and a half, 2 years, wanted nothing to do with adaptive sports, wanted nothing to do with being in a wheelchair, didn't want to be around people in a wheelchair. It was a lot of like bitterness and resentment still in my heart, and dealing with that, and not wanting to label myself as disabled. Or I didn't want to, I thought, honestly, man, I thought like adaptive sports were pathetic. I'm like, these guys, they're just out there for a hug, and they're not really athletes and whatever.
Mm.
And I'm never going to like get that competitive fire quenched or anything. So screw that. Ended up looking at wheelchair sports by a year and a half later. My buddy was really nice, but he basically was like, "You're fat. You need to do something." And I was almost 285 pounds at that point, and
Okay.
sitting in a chair, I could barely push around the block, and it's just not good for everyday life. And he's like, "Let's, maybe try to find something to do." And started looking up wheelchair sports. Wheelchair basketball obviously is, if you see a person in a wheelchair, you're probably thinking, "Hey, have you played wheelchair basketball?" Like, people don't ask that. Like, that's just, not everyone plays wheelchair basketball anyway.
Yeah.
But and it's for higher functioning athletes, and I'm a quad, and I was like, there's no way I can play that really. And then looked up like wheelchair racing, and that was a quick no. I didn't like running as an able-bodied. I figured I didn't want to push around a track in a circle. Like, that seemed kind of silly. And then found wheelchair rugby, and just saw it was a clickbait video, like you
Mm.
guys saw, where you just kind of smash into each other. I'm like, what are these guys doing? This is insane. And ended up going to a practice, and they told me to get in a chair, and kind of the rest is history. I ended up, 30 minutes into practice, realizing I could be an athlete again, realizing that these guys didn't mess around. The team that I went to was a club team that wasn't very good in the cities, but they literally changed my life, inviting me to play and be a part of it, and realizing I could be an athlete again. So it was pretty cool.
Incredible. Just amazing what, a bit of perspective, having your buddy give you a little kick in the ass will do. Hey,
Yeah.
um, let's talk about 2016, because you're an 8-time captain for this national rugby team, wheelchair rugby team, sorry, and you go to 2016 and you don't make the team, but you spend the entire year as an alternate. And I did a ton of searching through, and I could not find one article, piece of content that said that you were not as involved, if not more involved, with the team during that year. And you could tell just on the faces of your teammates and other individuals who are around you how impactful your presence and your insight and knowledge was for the team. Explain a bit of where that came from, how
Yeah.
you were able to put aside your ego and just be the ultimate team player.
Yeah. So it started back in 2012, actually. So, and this is great since you guys live in Canada. We're in the semifinals against Canada in 2012,
Okay.
and arch rivals in any sport, and in wheelchair rugby is no
Mm-hmm.
different. A huge history between the two, and we've been favored. We've been ranked number ones from 2005 all the way up until the London Games, and heavily favored to win gold. And I'm a rookie on this team, and like along for the ride type of deal, but playing a little bit too. Um, and that was just the expectation. So we get in the semifinal game, and in the first quarter, like I said before, we go by 1 point. There's no 3-pointers, no 7-point, like 1 point at a time. We literally crapped the bed in the entire first quarter. We were down like 16-9 at the end of the first quarter. Like,
Oof.
that's a blowout after 4 quarters in an international game. So it was just awful. In the huddle after the first quarter, we're like, well, let's fight back. Let's fight back. We ended up fighting all the way back. And it was going to be, I mean, I'm pretty sure I heard Mighty Ducks theme music with like a little mix of fire. I mean, the whole thing was happening. Disney was like, let's do a movie on this bad boy. We fought all the way back, tie the game. There's 55 seconds left. Scramble back. I'm talking the line that I played in, we were all rookies, didn't know what we're doing, and had 10, got them to have 10 turnovers and 20 possessions, like unheard of. Turning the ball over 50% of their possessions in a span, get all the way back, 55 seconds. We get one last turnover. We need to score, manage the clock well, we win the game. We ended up, the Disney music's going, everything's happening. We're flying V in that bad boy with the mighty, like the whole thing. And we turn the ball over. Canada goes and scores. They end up winning the game by 1. They're really high highs. They're all tears of joy. We're over here going, what just happened? Like devastated. Yeah, I see you over there pumping your fist. Like that's but that's Canada USA rivals.
100% it is.
That's the game, man. And from that point, we ended up going out, beating Japan, winning the bronze medal. But from that point, and I became a captain in 13. I'm thinking like gold is what's going to validate me. Gold is what I can find my value and worth. And if we win, I'm a good leader. If we win, we make up for 2012 and taking some of those veterans out with a bad taste in their mouth. If we win, everything's going to be okay. I end up, I was married in 2007. Yeah, 2000. Yeah, that's right. My wife's not one.
If it's wrong, we'll edit. I don't want any issues.
Yeah, April, if you're listening, when this comes, I'm sorry. I love you. Anyway, so and then we had started having kids in 2012, 13, and 15. And through that time, but I validated myself as a husband and a father based on if we're going to win the gold. Fast forward to 2016, I had a bad game in 2015 up at the Parapans in Toronto, where Canada beat us in the gold medal game. Another one that was one of my favorite games that we've ever played, because it was in a hockey arena, which are just awesome for acoustics and in a game scenario, just amazing. And lose the game barely, I think by 1, and ended up getting my captain role taken away. There's some stuff that went down that just, I could easily.
We don't have to dive into details.
Yeah, I could easily play the blame game or the victim card, but like it's lazy, and that's the easy way. Ended up, fast forward to 2016, ended up, making the squad for the 16 training squad thing, but then didn't go to any tournaments. Didn't go to the first tournament in Japan. Didn't go to the second tournament in Canada. Didn't go to Rio. I ended up getting cut. But that whole summer, just something in me realized, like, your character is going to shine through by what you do or don't do. Like, your action determines your character. Your reputation is whatever is online or whatever, like, but your character, you build that through action. You build that through your decisions. And so, like, I'm like, I need to make a decision. And I was wrestling so hard with, I'm so mad. I deserved to be on that team. I wanted to be on that team. And any athlete that gets cut like that should be like that. I mean, they're like, you know what, that makes a good athlete. I'm going to come back better, stronger, whatever. But it would have been easy to just say that, screw this. I'm getting, this isn't what I signed up for. I got my like, not a captain anymore. But during that whole thing, going to camps and playing as hard as I could, and still being the same leader I was, using my voice, communicating, encouraging people, lifting people up when they needed it. I remember after getting cut, it was in the end of June, and we had another 2-week camp left, and having to go to it and go to the ceremony where the guys are getting their jerseys for the games, and wrestling, with at night, I'm just pissed off and sucks. And during the day, I'm being as best teammate as I can for them, because they're my brothers. They're the guys that are going there, and we had worked a long, long time for. But it's not all butterflies and rainbows. At the same time, I'm pissed off, I'm angry. And I remember being not making it, and they're going to Rio, and just being depressed and feeling worthless, feeling like I was a failure, feeling like I let my team down. and realized through the power of mentorship, one of my mentors was like, why are you attaching your value and your worth to an outcome, a gold medal? Because even if I went to Rio and won a gold medal, that doesn't change who I am. Yeah, I can call myself a gold medal champion. Great. And whenever you play a game, you play to win. Like no one's like, hey, sign me up to, I really want to tie or lose. Like, no, like that's not what people do. And but going through that and realizing it was a pivot for me, and it was one of the most important things that I've gone through. I think a lot of times we're shaped by how we respond to our failures, not how we respond to our victories. Winning's kind of easy. There's winning and learning. Right? Like
That's
it's
so true.
and that's where it's at. And like, how can you learn from it? And so I had to look in the mirror and go, how can I get better? I can get better as a leader. I can stop leading for an outcome and start leading to be a servant to my teammates, to be able to serve them and get to know them on an intimate level. So I know how they tick. So I know how I can better respond to them as a leader within the program. And so we started doing that in 2017. And looking back, 2016 was, so they ended up winning silver, losing to Australia in the gold medal game. And but looking back, I say I'm a 2016 alternate with a lot of pride because it shaped me for these next 4 or 5 years that I've had, where I think I've been a pretty good leader and being able to have some street cred based on how I went through that and said, you know what, I've been in your shoes as an alternate. And as a team, it's all 16 of us that are going to get there. It's 12 that go, and it's 4 on the court at a time, but it's 16 guys and girl working together as a team, and everyone has value on this team, whether you're an alternate or not. And I think that's something that going through it really helped me with some of that
For sure.
leadership.
Well, yeah, and it provides you that perspective. And, like you said, you can't let your circumstances define who you are. And I think you absolutely should be extremely proud of the fact that you were that alternate in 2016 because, based on the information that we saw, man, I don't think they get silver without you. Simply put, based on those interactions and what we saw and what we kind of deciphered there, like, man, the impact you had was probably larger than anyone else, even the fact that you weren't on the court. So kudos to you for that. Let's kind of look forward and look ahead. In your Instagram bio, you've got grinding for gold in Tokyo. You're like, we're all pumped up to have sports starting back up here in some organizations, whatever the case, wherever you are. I mean, we're in lockdown in Ontario. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. But what's the team looking like right now? How are you guys preparing for this? What specifically do you guys have in mind? I'm always curious with Olympic athletes. You guys are competing against other nations, and like you said, there's rivalries like Canada versus USA that people have. Doesn't matter what sport, there's always going to be that edge involved. Are there specific parts of the process that you look forward to heading up and leading towards the Olympic Games?
Yeah, I mean, the journey in its entirety is beautiful. Each quad's so different, whether you have different guys filter in and out and laying that groundwork down. And then this year obviously has been insanely different. But we've done a really good job of trying to stay focused on our goals, and then also making new goals that were completely different when we were at home, when we didn't see each other for 10 and a half months. I think we got better as a team because we were able to take the time to go on Zoom, and whether it's a happy hour, just having fun, playing some trivia games or diving into film or whatever it would be. But we had to set some different goals since we weren't together. And so that was something that was there. And then, yeah, just enjoying the moments together, coming back for the first time at the end of January. I hadn't seen each other for 10 and a half months, and being on the court again, there's a lot of emotions there with that. And that's what I look forward to. I obviously, like, the Paralympic Games and traveling is a lot of fun. But it's those small stories and those journeys along the way that, those inside team things that happen. If you've been on a team before, you just have those inside jokes that you'll talk about and talk about old war stories, over a pint for years and years and years. So I think it's the journey that's special.
It's so true. I think, it's it might be overused now, but there's so many people that say you got to love the process, right? And Joel Embiid, I believe, is the one that really kind of coined that and got it super popular. But it is so true, because if you, again, to your point, say, you know what, I'm going to be defined by the fact that I win this gold medal in 2020, and you know what, once you get that, what happens after? The world
Exactly.
keeps spinning, the world keeps going around the sun, every day still has 24 hours, and you still have to ultimately build who you are. That gold medal at 2020 might be great, but you still got 60 years of life left. You can't ride the coattails of that forever, right?
No, exactly. I think you make a great point, and it's the relationships that you built along the way. It's making yourself or other people around you better, and and I think it's important as athletes to always remember at like our playing a sport should never be our purpose in life. And I think a lot of times we struggle with that as athletes. I have for sure. You just your identity is attached so much to it, and you turn a passion into a purpose, but then you end up feeling empty after. Like you said, you get all the way and you win the Super Bowl, you win the Stanley Cup, or you win, whatever it would be, whatever sport it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not gonna fill that void you have for having a true purpose. And I've realized that along the way as well, and realizing like my favorite thing that I was told by a cousin of mine, he played D1, his brother played D1, his other brother played, like, their athletics run the family, but don't let the sport use you. You use the sport to kind of platform and pursue what your true purpose is. Because if if your passions are sports, yeah, there's going to be purpose in coaching or mentoring or being able to be a trainer and pour in, so there's so many different avenues, the athlete pocket, like there's so many different avenues you can go to really have an impact on people and transform lives. But it's usually not just playing a sport and listening to the scoreboard say you're a winner or a loser, because that's not how life works.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's what our goal here with the Athletes podcast is, to ultimately educate the next generation of athletes. So I said it on our last show, but whether it's from the parents' perspective, they consume our content and they provide that value to their kids, whether it's a 15-year-old who's trying to make it to that next level, who's listening in to you and your story. You'll be episode 81 now, and it's pretty incredible, because every once in a while I look back if I'm feeling a little frustrated or just not getting as much progress as I was hoping for. But it's, again, all about perspective. And if we can impact one person, and it's happened now a bit more recently, actually more than ever, it's people reaching out, asking more questions about these people. And I love the fact that I'm able to have the ability to share your story and your unique point of view, because it provides so much insight into the next generation of athletes. And I think it's so important for everyone to be able to have access to that and to be able to learn what Joe Delegrave did to be able to become this incredible athlete, despite having an injury, despite, all else, other obstacles that you've faced. So, moral of the story is I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Was there a specific athlete or individual that you looked up to growing up, or even now at this point, that you kind of idolize or are trying to emulate, as far as in your specific sport, or whether it's your community work,
Yeah.
whatever the case?
Yeah, I love the question, because I was thinking about this the other day, and we tend to idolize people we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, like, my favorite baseball players were Sammy Sosa and Mark Grace. Sammy Sosa ended up becoming a cheater, and Mark Grace was like a drunk. He was just, it was just one of those deals where it's like, great. But having mentors that are heroes, or having family members that are like, those people in your life that are in your inner circle are way more important than the people outside of that inner circle. And a lot of times we're chasing down affirmation from people we don't really know at all. And it's like, what are you doing? And I think a lot of us go in that trap, me included. But for me, two guys that come to mind. One is Nick Springer. He's a guy that just passed away. Unfortunately, he's my age. He was an amazing athlete. He contracted meningitis when he was 14, and lost his arms below his elbows and his knees above his knees, or his legs above his knees. And at 14, and ended up becoming a gold medal Paralympian. Ended up unfortunately passing away, but he was an amazing athlete and had tenacity and lived life with the biggest heart ever. And he was the guy that came up to me and said, "Hey, you should move to Phoenix and train with me and Scott Hogsett and Shinichi Shimakawa from Japan, who were all Paralympians." And I was like, "Yeah, man, yes, please, like I'll hold your water bottle, whatever you guys need me to do. I'll come down there." And so like him being gracious enough to see potential in me, and then going down there, and then Scott Hogsett's the other mentor of mine. That was monumental in making me become a phenomenal athlete and leader. And the success that I've had there is owed a lot to him. We spent a lot of time in the gym alone together, going through the ins and outs and how to play wheelchair rugby, and me just being a sponge and listening to his coaching. And so he's one of those guys, talk about impact, that played a long time in the national team, but he's, for the last 25 years, mentored at St. Joe's Hospital in Phoenix, going to newly injured spinal cord injuries and talking to people about life's not over. Like this isn't the end. And simply an amazing dude, and deserves a ton of credit for who I am and how I act as a player and as a person.
It's I I bring that up and ask that question because I think it's so important, and you hit the nail on the head, right? You have to have people around you in your inner circle that can provide you that affirmation. I mean, there are 7.8 billion people on this earth, and a lot of them have negative points of view. And if they
Yeah.
have a negative thing to say about you, it should not affect you and what decisions you make moving forward,
Yeah.
because ultimately it's relevant. So I'm glad you were able to shine a light on that as well. I had something here I was going to bring up. Yeah, your website, actually. I was going to get Jordan to bring that up because you have a quote on there that was pretty impactful, and I want to read it out. And it says, "We all have a choice to not let our circumstances define who we are. It is a powerful thing when we realize we have an opportunity in any obstacle we face." And you kind of mentioned it at the beginning of this show, but I want to maybe have you share what you're doing now as in your motivational speaking, and what your aspirations are post athletic career, because I
Yeah.
think as athletes we focus on the now and what we're doing, but you've got this incredible passion and desire to continue providing value, and I think you're going to do some incredible things. I'd love for you to maybe give us a Cole's Notes version of what your plans are.
Yeah. I mean, here's where it's at. I truly believe my purpose is in sharing my story. And rugby has given me a platform to be able to open some doors, because it's like, what's this crippled dude doing playing rugby, blah, 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 and so it's able to open doors. But so it's like a beautiful thing where passion and purpose intersect. Whenever I talk to people about, I don't say it every single time, depending on the situation, but I don't want to be your inspirational porn. There's a lot of people that want to look at me in a wheelchair and go, "Man, I'm not going to complain anymore because that guy's in a wheelchair." Like that is stupid. It's just dumb. Like it's really cheap inspiration, because you're finding inspiration from someone else's like circumstances or obstacles. What I want to do is be able to speak to people to where they think through looking in the mirror and taking personal responsibility for their choices and their actions. You're where you're at in life because you decided where you're at in life. Like it's just is what it is. And so with the whole quote on there is, I don't want to let this wheelchair or my circumstance or my paralysis define who I am. I think I can find permanent victory in being who God's called me to be. And that's just to be a speaker. And I speak a lot about identity and a lot about those circumstances that we get the choice. And everyone's like, "Well, yeah, but this happened." It doesn't matter. Like you still get the choice. I'm poor though. Doesn't matter. You still get the choice. And I think leaving people are like, "Oh man, my perspective's changed." Because I got to look in the mirror. I got to figure some things out. I got to take inventory on where I'm at. Where am I sticking my identity? And is that working for me? Where am I validating myself? And is that working for me? And so for me, that's kind of where I'm at, and being able to kind of speak into that with people's lives. And it's an important lesson to learn. I think we learn it a lot through failure, because that's where we get to practice making the right choices.
Yeah, and it's stacking those failures, ensuring that you learn from every one of those failures, making sure you don't make the same mistake twice,
Yeah.
and then identifying what does work, combining the two, and you've got a recipe for success, right? Joe, I again can't thank you enough for coming on. Every episode we ask our guests what their biggest piece of advice would be to the next generation of athletes. I mean, you've shared 40 minutes of pure gold here, but do you have another little nugget tucked away
Yeah.
that you have for that last piece?
Yeah, let's talk real quick about accountability. You mentioned it on a post that I had on Instagram, and I love it because it's like accountability absolutely takes vulnerability. So when you're setting up, I talk a lot about 4 W's: words, work, walk, and win. And one of the W's is words, that first one. So you're setting a goal. Well, you have a dream in your head, right? You might have been dreaming about whatever it is, whether that's athletics or business or whatever it is, you have that dream. But if you don't tell anyone about it, that dream's just going to sit. It's still a dream. It doesn't become a goal until you write it down and tell someone about it, because you need to tell someone about it to be able to keep yourself accountable. It's really easy. I think man, that would be really cool if I did, if I was on the Paralympic team. If I never told anyone about it, I don't have to stay accountable to my diet and being able to change my lifestyle and eating and change my lifestyle and how I'm working out or anything like that. But I told some close friends. And so when I'm having a day or maybe a week that doesn't resemble, my actions aren't lining up with my goals and that doesn't resemble it, people are in my life to lift me up when I need it, hold me back when I need it. And so being vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I've got a dream here. I've got a goal here. I've got a vision and I want to pursue it. Will you come alongside me and keep me accountable to this? Because then when we're truly vulnerable with what we actually want, we've got people in our lives that can be guardrails for that goal, that can keep us focused on that can say, hey, let's take a stop here and have a perspective and look where you came. And so it's super important. That's what I mean by accountability takes vulnerability, is tell someone about your goals, and it's going to help you pursue them, help you have guardrails set up so you can get closer and closer to that finish line.
I've never heard someone use an example of having people around you as guardrails, and it is such a perfect analogy. And yeah, I'm flabbergasted. I'm speechless, which doesn't happen often. Joe Delegrave, I sincerely can't thank you enough for sharing your story. You're an incredible individual. Where can people find you on social media if they want to, interact, find out more?
Yeah. Go over to my website, joedelegrave.com. Find more about my speaking, and then jdelegrave14 is my Instagram handle. Joe Delegrave is my Twitter handle. And so if we want to be angry over on Twitter, come find me over there. Because I feel like everyone's angry on Twitter now. And then, hook me up on Instagram, slide into the DMs if you want to chat. Let's network and talk.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks to you, Jordan, and the Athletes Podcast team, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, folks, for listening to the 81st episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Joe Delegrave, the 2012 Paralympic Bronze medalist from the United States of America. I sincerely appreciate Joe, and for him, I sincerely appreciate Joe coming on and sharing his insights into just what life is like as a Paralympian, as an individual who motivates and inspires an incredible amount of people. I'm excited to follow up with him in the future and continue following their journey as a team. Pretty incredible, motivating. Not many words can describe. I don't even know what I'm saying.
It's all right. Just go back from where you were and then just wrap it up saying...
Yeah. Joe's an incredible human being. Simply put, thank you guys for watching, listening, wherever you are tuning into the Athletes Podcast. We appreciate it. Leave a review, hit that subscribe button. It means the world to us. Sincerely, it really does. Much appreciated. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, week. See you later. Bye.